With all the financial experts out there, you're probably wondering, should I invest first or should I pay off debt? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you 5 steps that you can follow, and this is going to settle it. First of all, after you hit that subscribe button, I want you to make sure that you understand you need to have money working for you in the market at all times. Look, I'm very familiar with all the experts out there. I've been in the industry myself for a number of years. I've also spoken on panels, done speaking engagements. I've taught thousands of people, helped thousands of people invest as well. And this is why I'm here to tell you that you need to have money working for you in the investment markets as often and as long as you can. But before that, we want to make sure that you cover number 1, and that's why it's have an emergency fund. Now, I know that sounds familiar, but your emergency fund, it functions as a security system. This is the deadbolt on your front door, it's the moat around your castle, it's the baseball bat under your bed. Whatever security system you use, it has to include an emergency fund. And gone are the days of an emergency fund being only $1,000. So whatever you thought you knew, just scrap that. $2,000 is the new minimum for an emergency fund. Consider this, when it comes to an emergency, let's say maybe it's a repair for your car, or maybe you have a pipe burst in your basement and you need to pay for insurance to cover that. These type of fees can wipe out the full $1,000 emergency fund. And there is an emotional attachment to money that we cannot deny, because the moment you decide to dip into your emergency fund, the negative emotions that you have to deal with are crippling. And what better way to overcome that than to have an additional reserve backing that up, helping support you so that you're ready for anything else. And this is outside of the fact that things cost much more. If you look at the average cost of an expense, it's no longer $400, it's much higher. If we have an even worse emergency, let's say maybe you have to go to the emergency room, if you have insurance, it could still cost upwards of $1,000. And if you don't have insurance, it'll wipe that whole $2,000 away. So God forbid you have that type of emergency, but if you focus on having at least an emergency fund of $2,000, you will be much more primed and ready for the next step, of course. This should be no surprise to you. Step 2 is to pay off your credit cards. Yes, and this is very common because credit card debt is very, very prevalent in our society. The nation itself has trillions and trillions of dollars of debt. So the example that's before us is not always the best, but at the end of the day, when we talk about credit card debt, it costs the highest. Any credit card you look at is going to have an interest rate over 20%. And imagine trying to invest or do something knowing that you have that balance with a credit card company. And these companies, I mean, the way they make their money, they entice you with all types of rewards and things. And depending on how you can use credit cards strategically, that's a completely different discussion. When you're talking about an unsecured loan with a credit card, the benefits of that credit card, they don't necessarily wipe out the benefits of investing. In order for you to really enjoy investing or building wealth, is to make sure you don't have other things weighing you down. And again, I just want to stress that the focus right now for you would be your credit cards. I'm not talking about paying off your car. I'm not talking about paying off your student loans. I'm not talking about paying off your mortgage, because when you stack these up and look at them, these tend to be very normal forms of debt that people own. And they're not as expensive as credit card debt. So when you line them up and look at the different balances, you have to look at what costs you more. And more than likely, credit card debt is the easiest to get rid of, but it also is the most expensive and the most intrusive, because the longer it lingers, the more it distracts you from other things. The other assets that you may have debt, with the exception of your student loans, you actually can sell them to offset some of that. Another reason I really want you to focus on paying off credit cards is because how you handle your credit card debt tells me everything about how you handle any other forms of debt. And this all lays the groundwork for number 3, and I know this is going to blow your mind. This is why number 3 is to beat your employer match. Yes, don't just do the minimum, beat your employer match. Okay, so depending on where you go, some people are gonna tell you that just do the minimum, only do up until what they match, and then focus on other things. But I'm gonna challenge you a little bit, and that's what I'm here for. Because there is a certain feeling you get from building wealth versus the feeling you get from paying off debt. In fact, when you pay off debt, all you do is you pay off debt. Most of the time you still have what you had before, and you just feel a little bit better. But if you pay much more attention to your investing, you're gonna make room for wealth building activities versus the debt elimination activities. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with paying off debt. I think if you could prevent yourself from debt situations, that's where you need to put that energy. Look at it this way. If the average contribution to a 401k is about 3 to 6%, if you're doing at least 1 or 2 more percent than that, then you're actually doing more than anyone who's doing any type of baby steps, and you are investing in yourself. Think of it from this perspective. No one should invest in you more than you. So not your employer, you. In fact, your employer is going to change, but you aren't really going to change in that perspective. You have to be for you, regardless of where you work or what you do. And what better way than to make sure you are putting your best foot forward? Because as these employers change, you still have to make sure you are meeting up your end of the bargain. If you have any way that you can one up the competition, it's going to be by investing in yourself and contributing more into you than your employer does. I'll bring a little bit of science into this too, because consider the human body. There's over 60 different hormones that are produced in the body. But when you think about finances, let's just focus on 2. Look at dopamine and cortisol. When we talk about dopamine, that is the feel-good hormone. So when you make money, like imagine you win the lottery, or maybe when you make money trading or investing, or this is why people like to gamble or do so many other things that make them feel good. It raises the dopamine level. You get that from investing. Now let's look at paying off debt. Well, when you pay off debt, or actually when you have debt, it spikes the other hormone that we're talking about, and that's cortisol. Cortisol is known as that stress hormone. It actually weighs on your body. It's linked to high cholesterol, high stress levels, and heart issues. Literally, debt can kill you. And paying off debt is great. It will spike some dopamine, but not like earning money does, or not like investing does, not like watching your investments grow does. So I'll ask you, what would you rather have? Would you rather have more dopamine or less cortisol? I'll let you decide. If you like that, then there's going to be no surprise why number 4 is number 4. And that's why step 4 is to invest more, particularly about 12 to 15%. If you can find a way to make sure that your overall savings and investing is 12 to 15%, you will be in such a much better place. Because, spoiler alert, the government is not going to be able to save everybody, okay? They're just not designed to do that. And there's no new pensions coming up to save you, or other type of plans that are gonna have more than enough funds to make things comfortable for you. So you have to have an active role in all of this. If you do the math yourself, the quicker you can get to 12 to 15% savings, the much sooner you'll be in a financially secure situation. And there are many different account types that you can use to do this. It doesn't just only have to be in your 401k. You can also use taxable accounts or tax advantage accounts like an IRA, Roth IRA, or again, like a 401k. If you have any questions about those, I want you to watch this video right here. But let's think about some numbers. For example, if you just imagine starting off with $2,000 invested, and then every week you add $100 for the next 30 years with a modest 10% return with something as boring as the S&P 500, your money will grow to over $800,000. And here's the kicker, it's only with you investing about $146,000 of your own money. And again, these are very modest numbers. This is not considering the fact that as you move forward in time, more than likely you're gonna make a little bit more money so that you can contribute more. But I'm giving you this example so that you know that if it were increased to about 10 to 15%, you can do even more damage, which could lead to your financial security. So the choice is yours. How you want to build this, it's completely up to you. And you can accelerate this timeline because some people will look at 12 to 15% and say that, hey, I can do much better because I live a more lean lifestyle. Hey, if that's you, even better. The earlier you start this, the better. And this brings us to step 5. Step 5 is stay flexible. There are a lot of different ways to go about this, and this is not gonna fit everyone, all right? Some people may be able to do things much quicker. Some others may need a little bit more time, or they need to make room for other things. You know, there are people with situations where maybe they don't have kids, or maybe they don't want any, or maybe they're gonna live a much leaner lifestyle and it allows things to work better in their favor. Then you can work some things around, but you have to stay flexible. You know, when I think about when I started investing back technically in 2008, but when I started working full-time in 2009, my salary was $33,000. And my manager said, hey, do your best to max out your 401k. So what did I do? I tried my best and I put 15% for my 401k deferrals. Yes, 15% on a $33,000 salary. And let me tell you, it was rough. So rough that after that first paycheck, I dropped it down to 10%. I said, this is a lot. So 15, I went from 15 to 10. And then from 10, it was still too much. So I dropped it down to 7. The only mistake was I left it at 7 for a little over 3 years. Even with pay bumps and lifestyle adjustments, and I'm starting to get comfortable, and I was just on autopilot. I left it on 7% much longer than I should have. Do I live with some level of regret in that? Maybe, but I know now that it's okay to have to drop that down because there's also times where it's just better to increase it and just stick with that pattern. Most recently, I made an adjustment to drop it down just so I can fund other aspects of my life and take my family on the trip of a lifetime. And if that's something you want to see, feel free to check out this video here. But the flexibility in this allowed me to just make room for life. And that may be your case. Just know that it's okay to make some of these changes. The one thing I did not do was stop. I kept investing the entire time. So I allowed myself to be flexible, but at the same time, I stayed consistent. And that's what worked best for me because I was still able to take advantage of the market. Look, there is a big emphasis on paying off debt, and I get it because I do think debt can be crippling. And depending on your situation, it's hard to sleep at night. Your cortisol levels are way too high. I get it. And a lot of this is linked to student loans. Some of it is linked to just other things. Maybe some decisions that weren't the best, or maybe your scenario is just you didn't have any type of support, so you look to credit cards. I completely get that. But just know that when you focus on being debt-free only, there is a potential that you aren't going to be ready for investing when the time comes. When it's all said and done, your debt is paid off. What are you going to do? You still have to jump into the investment markets. And that's a whole nother level of risk that you need to be ready for. And you can't get ready for investing without investing. There are some people that believe that you need to pay off your entire mortgage. I don't believe you have to do that. That's not something that's in my plans or something that I desire to do because I think about the opportunities missed with missing out on investing. The time we have to invest, we don't get that back, okay? And I've been a homeowner for almost 10 years at this point, and I'm now selling my home in order to buy another one. And when we did the math, it was basically a wash. We've paid monthly, every month. We've done upgrades, we've done repairs, all that comes with owning a home. And when I did that and looked at what we actually made out with when we're selling our home, it's literally a break even. Okay, so the appreciation of the value of the property and all of that stuff. So I'm okay with the fact that I didn't accelerate trying to pay off my mortgage. You know, it allowed us to live a lifestyle where we could also put our kids through daycare. We can also invest for our kids and still invest for ourselves. Like, we were able to still live life, and we weren't debt free, and I have zero regrets. The one thing I know about myself though, is that I would have regretted it if I paid everything off and then started investing. If I paid everything off, the level of regret I would have experienced would be, man, I missed out on this stock, or I didn't get to catch this investment, right? But I was still able to pay off debt slowly at my own pace. Yes, I paid interest, that's part of it. But at the same time too, the only type of regret I'm going to have is the fact that, hey, I missed out on this stock, but I still owned that other stock, or I still have a collection of funds that gives me a little bit of ownership in those investments. So I didn't miss out completely. And you have to pick, what are you willing to miss out on? That's how you'll know whether or not you should invest first or pay off debt first. All right, so just to recap, step one is to have an emergency fund, and it needs to be $2,000 because $1,000 just isn't enough anymore. Step two, pay off your credit cards because those have the highest interest rates. Step three, beat your employer match. Don't just do the minimum. This way you can be ahead of the curve. Step four, invest more. Particularly try to aim for 12 to 15%. And you can use different savings accounts and investing accounts to hit this goal. And then lastly, step five, stay flexible, because you have to be ready for what life throws at you. If you happen to be struggling with any of these steps, particularly getting started, so step one, I want you to watch this video right here. Stay present.